So, you want to sail with the Stawhats and take our would-be Pirate King to your pre-release. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to help you out, so stay tuned. Welcome back there, crew. Today, we're going with our red starter deck, if you want to take that to the pre-release, starring our lovable MC, Mr. Straw Hat Luffy. Now, the problem with this deck is there's been a bit of flack going around about it, saying that, it's not the best, or it's one of the weaker ones, and, there's sound reason behind that. And I'm going to go through that with you, so you can better understand what you're trying to do with the deck. Now, can you win with this deck? Well, of course you can, but it's going to take knowledge in what your tools are and how to use them in order to overcome your opponent, If you're just going in and just kind of playing the cards, you may find this deck a little underwhelming compared to one of the other decks that kind of, rewards you easier for playing the cards. And I'm going to go into that in a bit. But go ahead and give me a solid red hawk to that red sub button and hit the little ding-a-ling thing so that you are able to see whenever I post a new video. And our crew. Alright, so let's see. What's the most basic way to explain this deck? So I'm going to give you a little overview of what the deck's trying to do before I go through individual cards so that it's easier to understand what those cards' roles are. So the best and simplest way that I can put this deck is that it is a classic beatdown deck. And what do I mean by beatdown deck? It's not that you have really, really strong guys, it's more of you can efficiently make them hit the magic numbers that you want them to hit for efficient attacks that force and pressure your opponent to be like, I could guard this, but it's going to take cards out of my hand, like a decent amount of cards, or I could just take it. And you want to keep that pressure going the entire game until you get your opponent out of life. And this deck is actually pretty scary when your opponent is at 0 life. So they're going to have to go ahead and consider that, and if they don't, you could catch them off guard. There are 2 cards that make this deck considerably scary when you're at 0 life, and I'll go over that. But what do I mean when I say magic numbers? If you've never played a game that has a handguard mechanic quite like this, I believe this game, Dragon Ball Super has a handguard mechanic, and Cardfight Vanguard has a handguard mechanic. Or, if you've never played any of those games, or let's just say this is your first card game, you may not know what I'm talking about. So let me go ahead and go into this term for you. But no, it's like I'll run it down for you so that you always have it in your head. What are magic numbers? Magic numbers are what you're trying to hit when you attack to give you the most effective way of pressuring the opponent to get a damage in, right? So in this game, we have the 1,000 guard cards, the 2,000 guard cards, which are called counters in this game, but it's just much easier for me to say guard. There is the 2-drop 4K guard cards. And then in this deck, there happens to be a 3K, but it's the only card that does 3K, so it's kind of like in a gray area. You don't really need to worry about it that much. So what you're going to focus on is the 1, the 2, and the 4. It gives you 3 magic numbers. So your leader is 5K. They're all 5K. At least for now, right? But they're all 5K for ease of math. That means when you block with a 6, or when you attack with a 6, they need to guard 2K. So your guard potential is if you guard with 1K, makes your leader is 6. Tie goes to the attacker in this game, so you need to be over that. If you give them a 2, it makes them a 7. And you give them a 4, it makes them a 9. So what you want to do is you want to consistently swing at your opponent for 6,000, 7,000, and 9,000. So why do you want to do that? If you swing at the leader for 6, they can't 1-card guard it with a 1,000. They have to have a 2 or even a 4. If you swing at them with a 7K, that means they cannot guard it with anything less than an event. And if you swing 9K, they can never 1-card guard it. Now the most important number I would say here is the 7K mark. You definitely want to hit the 7K mark whenever you can when you're pressuring the leader, because that means they need to have a big event or they have to 2-card guard it, and getting cards out of your opponent's hand is what you want to do. Obviously, you have to swing when you can swing, right? So if you're, low on Dawn, or your guys are small and you just want to poke for 5, that's, what you have to do. But I'm going into these magic numbers specifically in this deck because this deck is efficient at hitting those numbers easier than the other decks. This is where the strength of this deck lies. It's very subtle because it doesn't say it on the card that, use this effect, hit magic numbers, swing. You need to know what the magic numbers are so you know what you're trying to swing for. This deck is very efficient at getting to that 7k line on pretty much all of its attackers, which is really good because it needs to make up for the fact that it doesn't have an advantage engine. So, what is an advantage engine, if you're not familiar? An advantage engine are cards that allow you to get extra cards out of, say, the deck or graveyard and add them to your hand or field, or cards that let you draw cards. Unfortunately, this deck does not have a single card that does that for you. So what you have is what you got. You're not going to be able to pull cards out of the deck, get cards back from the graveyard, or draw extra cards to replace the cards that you already have on the field. So your cards need to go in for maximum value. Go ahead and take a drink. So now with that base out of the way, we have a better understanding of what this deck's trying to accomplish. You want to set up your attackers, and you want to hit the magic numbers so that you can pressure your opponent as much as possible. And your leader, that we can finally get into, Mr. Straw Hat Luffy himself, helps in doing that. His effect is very simple, but it's how you use it that helps you get to those magic numbers. Because once per turn, it allows him to give himself or any of your characters a rested Dawn. So that means you can pay for something, and then use paid Dawn to boost guys by 1,000. So it can help you get to that 7k magic number that you pretty much want all your attackers at. Now, if you have just a few attackers, right, like maybe 1 or 2, you might want to try and go for the 9k, right, because that's the magic number for events. But your opponent has to telegraph that. If your opponent doesn't have Dawn up, they can't use events. So you can completely ignore the 9k as a magic number and just go for the 7k. It's just the better number to go for. So if you see your opponent doesn't have any up, you probably want multiple 7k attacks instead of like a 9 and like a 6. And if they have 2 up, then you're like, okay, that means they probably have an event. So I want to try and swing for the 9 so they can't 1-card guard. Now let me go through and tell you the cards that actually work really well with this. It's the cards that have Dawn skills. So we go right into the super rare of the set, which is the Big Luffy. This is your best card in the deck. It is the super rare, so that is to be established, but it really is the best card. First of all, he's 6k, so he's big, and he's relatively simple to guard in a normal sense if they're trying to run him over. Unfortunately, one of the other problems with this deck is it's very low on defensive cards, so you may find that hard to do if they swing into him. But you do want to try to defend him if he is being attacked, because he's very valuable as an attacker. He has Rush. You don't need to activate that skill, he just has it. And then underneath is the Dawn skill. Dawn times 2, when attacking, your opponent cannot activate Blocker. Now he works well with the leader for a very simple reason. He has a Dawn times 2 skill, which means he needs Dawn under him to use that skill. And if you use your leader, you can use a rested Dawn to put under him. So you pay 5 for him, because he's going to be active immediately because he has Rush. So you have to do this in the non-setup way, where you're using the Dawn you have immediately the turn. So you're going to be down 5. Now you can use your leader skill to give him 1, and then you can manually attach 1. So this is going to make him an 8,000 attacker that cannot be blocked. And earlier, I told you that this deck is very scary when your opponent is at 0 life. And that is because there is a card like this in the deck that says your opponent can't block. So if you slam down this Luffy, so you have 10 Dawn, because it's late in the game, they're at 0 health. Slam down the Luffy for 5. You have 5 up. You can just straight up give him solid 5, then use Luffy's skill, give him 6, and he has a 12k attacker that can't be blocked. And that is a very dangerous prospect if your opponent only has a couple cards in hand. If they only have like 3 cards in hand, they better have an event to help them reach that number, or they're not going to be living. So it's very dangerous when you go to 0 against this deck because of a card like this. There's even an event that also makes it so you can't block. But because it's not good, well, I'll get into that when I get to the card, but it's only good late game. Another card this works with is your Jimbei, because he has a Dawn ×1 skill. Because when attacking, one of your leaders or your characters, other than Jimbei, gain 1,000 power. So because of the way Luffy works, you can get this for free by giving him a rested Dawn. Now, he isn't a rush character, so you're going to need to set him up, and then you're going to go to full, and then you're going to have to decide, what do I want to play so that I can get full value, because you're going to need to play a card, right, to rest the Dawn, so that you can use your Luffy skill to give him a free Dawn and get full value. But he gives something 1,000 when he attacks. So you can use Luffy on him, makes him a 6k because he has a Dawn. You can give him one more Dawn, makes him a 7, which is the magic number. And what you do is you swing for 7, and then using his skill you can give something else 1,000 to prep them to get to a 7. So this is one of the things I'm talking about where this deck is very efficient at getting to magic numbers. Because by using just a couple Dawn, you can actually prep multiple guys to be at that 7k mark, which is where you want to be. So this effect's very simple, but you can use him in a more advantageous way by just thinking about the numbers you want to hit beforehand. So even if it's just like Luffy and Jimbei, right? Your leader and Jimbei, you give him the 1, you give him 2, make him 7, you swing for 7, you give your leader 1,000 so he's 6, and then you can give the leader another 1,000 so he's 7, you have 2 7 attacks, and then you did all that with what? You said, we said 1 Dawn to make him 6, and then 1 Dawn to make him 7, 1 Dawn to make Luffy 7, to make him 6, and then Jimbei will make him 7, so it's 3 Dawn investment. And if you're, prepped his effect beforehand, so you're using a recycled Dawn, it's only 2 Dawn to make 2 7k attackers. And then you can prep your next attackers that need to be set up for. Our next, Robin's a vanilla and Frankie's vanilla, so we're not really going to talk about them. Our next boy is the next super rare in the deck, which is Mr. Zoro. And he has a very simple effect, which is the effect of, with a Dawn under him, he gains 1,000. Okay, what were we talking about? We're talking about hitting magic numbers efficiently. And by just gaining an extra 1,000, that's hitting magic numbers efficiently. And with your leader, you can make that free. Depending on your hand structure and how you want to set up, that is free, right? So you go into your turn, you play, let's say, a Robin. Like, let's just say you play a vanilla. So you pay 3, you can give one of those 3 to Zoro, boom, 7k. You can stop investing in him if you want. Right there, he's just big enough. Magic number. Another interesting concept about this card that I didn't know when the game originally came out is that this effect carries over to your opponent's turn. I never really thought about it. Most of the Dawn effects do say during your turn, but this one does not. So I didn't really put 2 and 2 together at the beginning, but now I know that if you put a Dawn under Zoro, during your opponent's turn, he's still gaining 1,000. He won't gain the 1,000 from the Dawn game mechanic, but from his effect he will. So he is at 6k on the opponent's turn. And why does that matter? Because it's a little harder to run over. That's the trade-off here. So he's easier to guard so that you can still have him on the following turn. But yeah, his entire effect is just for 1 Dawn, he hits a magic number. So that's good. Now, we need to talk about Usopp. Now, Usopp got done dirty, let's be honest. In my experience, this card is unplayable. But you gotta play it because you're playing the pre-constructed starter deck. Now, why is he unplayable? First of all, he's 2,000 power. Now, for some reason, every other trigger card, every other trigger character that you can play from your life is 3,000. Bar Boa Hancock in the blue deck, but she's a blocker, so that's completely different. This is supposed to be an attacker. And his Dawn effect, which is Dawn ×2, when attacking, your opponent cannot activate blocker on characters with a power of 5,000 or more. So, for some reason, even with the 2 Dawn investment, he doesn't reach 5k. I don't know why. It seems like the math is just off on this card. But you need to invest 3 Dawn to make him 5k. Your leader lets you cheat a bit. You can give him 2 Dawn and then pop 1 under him. But you usually have better cards you want to use that kind of skill on, and not on this Usopp. And his stop blocker effect only applies to big blockers, so they can still chump block the Usopp. And what I mean by chump block is a little one-drop blocker, so they can just block the Usopp. And for some reason, I just don't see the purpose of this card. Now, if you have experience with this card and things that you've done with him, please let me know in the comments so I can have a grasp on Usopp here. Because Usopp's, great and all, but this card does not show you that he's great, that's for sure, in my opinion. So if you have tips for this card specifically, let me know. But for the most part, let me just say, for the most part, when I see this card off my damage, I don't even play it. I just add it to my hand so that I can have the guard, because thankfully he has guard. That's kind of how I feel. And the first card I always guard with is this card. Our next effect boy is the Sanji. Now Sanji is your other main rusher. There's only the 2 rushers in the deck, which are the Big Luffy and this Sanji. So you have to use your tools efficiently, and you don't really want to, I guess, throw this guy out really early unless he's your only attacker. Because he has 4k, so as soon as he swings in to do that damage, right, on the flow back of your opponent's turn, he's probably going to get run into and killed, and he's lower than 5k, so he's going to be hard to guard, so you pretty much have to let him go. But his effect is Dawn times 2, he gains Rush. So he's a 2-drop with Rush if you have the setup for it. And what I mean by setup, I mean it's not hard to set up. You, like, at the bare minimum, right, because of your leader, if you have 3 Dawn up, you pay 2 for the Sanji, comes out, you give him the 3rd to make 1 Dawn, and then you immediately use the Luffy skill, give him the 2nd Dawn, and he's ready to go, and he's 6k. So that means, with just 1 more investment, let's say you want to put 4 Dawn into him, because you can cheat a little bit because of your leader, you can make him a 7k rusher. Sounds good to me, it's a magic number, and a straight up attack, right away. You don't need to set up, your opponent might not even see it coming, boom, 7, right? There's another card that helps you facilitate this even better. And we'll get to her right now, actually. I'll just skip over to her so we can all see her. And that is Nami, who's actually a fantastic 1-drop. Because she gives you a 2nd usage of your leader's ability. She says, main once per turn, give your leader one of your characters a rested Dawn. So, I mean, come on. That's good, right? I mean, if the leader is good, then Nami's good. She can literally sit there the whole game. You just play like 1 of her down, sit there the whole game, and just efficiently help you reach numbers easier. So when we go to Sanji, that means if you have just 2 Dawn, right, you can go ahead and play him, and then use Luffy Nami, boom, gives him 2 Dawn. He has Rush, he's 6k, and then if you have an extra Dawn, boom, you can make the 7 even. Now what's good about Nami is you can even do that effect the same turn she's played. So let's say you're doing the Sanji turn, right, and you have Sanji and Nami in your hand, you have the 3 Dawn up, and you play 2 for Sanji, and then you pay 1 for Nami, and then boom, you're there, because you can recycle the 1 you paid for Nami to put under Sanji, and then you can use Luffy to put 1 under Sanji, and you played 2 cards very efficiently, and you just need the 1 extra Dawn to make him a 7k. It's pretty solid at my point. Now Brook is our 2k guard card, part of the magic number system I was telling you about. One of the issues is they only give you 2 of him in this starter deck. So your defensive plays are a little lackluster. You only have the 2 2k guards, so you want to use him the best that you can. And in my opinion, you don't want to play him because he's your only 2k guard. But his on-play effect is okay, in my opinion. When you play him, he recycles the 2 that you played him with to give to somebody else. So give your leader or 2 of your characters 2 rested Dawn cards. He costs 2. You immediately have the 2 rested Dawn cards. But I don't see why you would want to play him. You kind of just want the defense in your hand. Alright, that's pretty much all there is about Brook. And then we have the 1-drop vanilla, the 1-drop blocker chopper, and we already talked about Nami. Now going into the events, we have Gum Gum Jet Pistol. Big old jet pistol. This card is fantastic. It's probably like the best card in the deck, bar your Big Luffy, because this card can't do damage, so it can't be the best card in your deck. You can't win the game with it. But it's really, really good, because for 4, which is a very low cost for a card like this, just KO any opponent's character with power 6,000 or less. Now this can kill the 6k blockers, which are great, which is Queen and Crocodile, respectively, in the Crocodile deck. And then its trigger effect just lets you use the card for free. So it's really good for clearing out just threats. You can even clear out little threats. You could neg yourself, and kill a 1-drop blocker that's just in your way and you just want to go for face. But with it having a trigger and that main effect and how cheap it is, it's just a fantastic card. There's really no combo to worry about this. Just be like, oh, I have Jet Pistol. When do I want to use this? Because you don't just want to blow the card, you want to save it and use it in the opportune time. Now, Guard Point is your defensive event, and it only costs 1, which is good, and it gives you that weird number, which is 3k. This is the only card in the game that we know of that gives you 3k, which is why it doesn't really fit into the magic number system, because this is the only card you're ever going to worry about going around, the 8k mark. But for 1, you get 3k, so it's a little bit less than the 2 cost 4k, and a little bit more than the typical 1 drop 2k. And the trigger says one of your leaders gain 1,000 power for the turn, so it helps you defend a little bit easier. For the most part, unless you're going to die, I would just add this card to your hand so that you can use it next turn if you don't have any up. But yeah, it's a good defensive card. It really helps you defend a card like your Big Luffy, really, because it makes him a 9k. And like I said, you kind of want to have this guy live as efficiently as you can, because he's just a better attacker than pretty much everything else in the deck. Now, going to Diable Jumbo. What? That's just hard to say. We'll call it Jambalaya. So we have the Jambalaya Attack, and this lets you give your leader or any of your characters the effect of the Big Luffy. So you pick one of your guys, and they can't be blocked. Your opponent cannot activate blocker when they attack. Now the problem with this versus the Luffy is just statically a good card. You can attack with it early game, mid game, like it's always good because it's always applying pressure. This card is only good when your opponent has no life. Or in the case if you just also have the Luffy, maybe when they have 1 life, because you can use this on your leader and then go for the double no block. And its trigger is awful. I think I've triggered it like 1 time in like, a million matches. Because it only kills a cost 3 or less with blocker. Like, why can't it just kill any 3 or less? Like, there's cards that do that. Why can't this not do it? But it doesn't. So this is the card that goes with the Big Luffy for that lethal push at 0 health. When I told you your opponent needs to be really careful when they're at 0, because you have cards that can cancel blocker. So if you shotgun, which is giving all your Dawn to one guy, and you slam this for 1 cost on your leader, you can effectively make your leader 14,000, and they can't block, they have to hard guard it. It sounds like game to me, unless they have like a 5 or 6 card hand, and maybe 2 up for an event to give them 4k to cross the gap to at least 9. But other than that is the other side of the coin, where you draw this early and it's not doing anything for like 10 turns. Because if you play this early, there's like, okay, and they'll just snap take the damage, right? There's no reason. So you're going to invest Dawn, because you still need to hit your magic numbers. You can't just slam this on a guy and like swing for 5k with just 1 card guard it. And this is a neg. By neg, I mean it's a card that you play, goes to the graveyard, and doesn't stay around. So you went -1 in card economy just for this temporary effect, because it only lasts for the turn. So if you play this early, you're kind of doomed if you do if you don't. If you don't invest in the card for power, they 1 card block it, no big deal. If you over-invest in the card, they snap take it because they still have life, and they're like, whatever, and you just lost a card. So the only time this card is really wanted to be used is at the very end of the game when you just want to go for game. But it's good at that if you can get to that point. And our last card is the Sunny. Now, the Sunny, it's not a great card, unfortunately, and that's sad because the Sunny is so integral to the Straw Hats. But keeping, lore and canon aside, what does this card do? So it's a stage card, which is rare, actually, because as we've come to understand, only red and purple have a stage card. Unfortunately, Onigashima is really good, and this card's kind of lackluster. You rest the stage, and any of your Straw Hats gain 1,000. Okay, it's a free 1,000, right? Sure, but it costs 2 to play, and each Dawn can give somebody 1,000. So why do you play this card? So you pay 2 to play it, you give someone 1,000. On the next turn when it restands, you give someone another 1,000. So at this point, you have broke even. So you paid 2 Dawn, which are equivalent to giving somebody 2,000, to gain 2,000. On your third turn, when you play it for the third time, you're giving someone another 1,000, and you've reached over that gap. You have now effectively plussed on power boosts. So the Sunny really needs to be played as early as possible so that you can generate the 1,000 throughout the game so that you can actually get value out of this card. And you really want to play it as early as possible because it doesn't have guard. So the longer you hold this card, the less value you get out of its effect. And it's not doing anything in your hand. There's no discard cost or anything in this deck. So really, you're just going to have to plan your turn around paying 2 to play the Sunny, just so that you can get the 1,000 every turn and be as efficient as possible. Alrighty, gone through the deck. You're not going to talk about the vanillas. There's no reason to. I think that's all I really wanted to say on the matter. But I truly hope I have been able to help anyone who wanted to take the Straw Hat deck to their pre-release. Because when it really boils down to it, what is the pre-release? It's a startup event for a great new game that's coming out to introduce players to the game. And what's more important at that point? To play a deck that you think is the better deck, or to play a deck you actually wanted to play? And in my case, it's definitely play the deck you actually wanted to play. Because, come on, you're just playing some starter decks. It's the old joke of, bro, you're teaching art at the rec center. Calm down. Like, let's not go too 5-head, but let's go ahead and if you want to do well in the event, I think they're giving out some promo cards. Play the deck you want to play, but know how to play that deck. I think that is the sweet spot where you want to be, where you're like, oh, I want to play the Straw Hat deck, but know what its advantages are, know what its strengths are, so that you can maybe pull the turnaround, pull the rug out from under your opponent who thought, they're playing the best deck, and you're just like, well, I'm just going to smack you with these really efficient numbers, and you're going to be like, how did I lose? But when your favorite starter deck is the one that isn't the strongest starter deck, we will say that with big quotes because it's, they're pretty, for starter decks, they can go head and head. It's not, there's a little bit more depending on skill level and, other factors, but play the deck that you want to play. Which leads me into my question of the day. Is there a difference for you? Do you feel that your favorite deck is different than the deck you think is the strongest deck? So let me know, what is your favorite starter deck? And what is the one you think is the strongest starter deck? Do those two meet together, or are they separate? That's the question for the day. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some nice knowledge out of this, and if you didn't know the magic number mechanic, keep that in mind, because that's not going to go away. It's not something specific to this deck. You want to keep that in mind for all the decks, because those numbers are still going to be around. It's just this deck seems to be more proficient at hitting those numbers. I do have a couple more of these videos to do, and I think I'm going to do a gameplay video just for the starter decks. I hope you are interested in seeing that. I guess let me know if you want to speak in the comments if that's something you want to see, a little starter deck battle, with the tabletop camera. The next ones are Kaido and Kurako Boy, and I will hopefully see you in the next one, guys. See ya!